4-0 is the score recorded yesterday in Limbe as the Intermediate Lions of Cameroon when they played to look for tickets for the final at the ongoing Shan competition in Cameroon. Unfortunately, the Lions bowed out yesterday when they played with Morocco. Good morning, televiewers. Here on to your favorite program, The Brief, dedicated to the review of striking headlines in the papers. The program is bilingual. It is interactive as well. And we always have with us our guests who either join us on Skype or they come in the studio to analyze with us what the papers are saying. And Quentin Etape from the French desk is also around this morning to read the headlines in the French language for you. Bonjour, Quentin.
Bonjour, Lacha Kinsili. Bien, le bonjour à tous nos nombreux et millions de téléspectateurs qui nous regardent en ce moment. Je les souhaite la bienvenue à MyMedia Prime TV, la télévision leader. Eh bien, le match d'hier, c'était 4-0 en faveur du Maroc. Eh bien, l'information étant devenue une denrée très importante pour l'organisme humain, les thèmes sont denses dans les unes qui sont présents dans les kiosques ce matin. L'on parle du sport, l'on parle en même temps de la santé, de l'économie et de la sécurité. Ouvrons ce matin avec le quotidien La Capitaux gouvernemental Cameroun Tribune qui s'intéresse ce matin à la coopération bilatérale entre le Cameroun et la Sri Lanka et titre à sa grande une l'avenir ensemble. Le journal de Marie-Claire Nana nous fait savoir ce matin que les bases d'une accélération de la coopération sur le plan économique dans les jours à venir étaient au cœur des échanges entre l'envoyé spécial du président Gotabaya Raja Rasta, le haut commissaire du Sri Lanka au Kenya, Vulupile Kananathan, et le président Paul Biya qui l'a reçu hier en audience dans son palais à Yaoundé. Les détails de leur entretien sont évoqués dans les pages 3 et dans les pages 2 et 3 de ce journal présent en kiosque ce matin. Poursuivons avec le quotidien bleu Le Jour qui dans sa livraison de ce jour revient sur l'accident de Tian et consacre à sa grande une l'enquête sur le carburant de la mort. Le journal bleu d'Aman Mana indique que les chiffres ont évolué près d'une semaine après la survenue de cette hécatombe ayant causé un bilan mortel. De nombreux morts et blessés ont été enregistrés, sans oublier des dégâts matériels. En tout cas, les résultats de cette enquête sont à lire dans les colonnes des pages 2 et 3 de ce journal présent en kiosque ce matin, qui par ailleurs nous parle de la région de l'Ouest où il a constaté que 109 nouveaux cas de coronavirus y sont apparus. C'est d'ailleurs le titre qu'il a confié à la une ce matin. Selon nos confrères, l'information n'est pas à douter car c'est la situation épidémiologique de cette région qui a été présentée au ministre de la Santé publique au cours de la visite de travail mardi dernier à Bafoussam. Une information que vous pouvez retrouver dans la page 5 de ce journal présent en kiosque ce matin. Et puis le quotidien de l'économie dans son numéro nous renseigne sur Eneo et s'interroge sur l'entreprise ou bien il s'interroge sur comment est-ce que l'entreprise a structuré la levée de fonds de 100 milliards de francs CFA. À sa une, le journal de Thierry Écoutier renseigne que près de 8 banques locales ont été mises à contribution pour réaliser cet objectif. Information à lire dans sa totalité en page 3 de ce journal qui par ailleurs évoque également la CEMAC et titre à son pied de une les prix des produits agricoles exportés en hausse. Pourquoi? La réponse est à retrouver à la page 6. Terminons ce matin avec le Messager qui titre Crise anglophone, qu'inspirer de la visite de Pietro Parolin. Le journal estime que les non-dits en terre camerounaise du cardinal Pietro Parolin sont favorables à travailler pour le retour de la paix dans les régions anglophones en crise du pays. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est tout pour la lecture des unes en langue française. Place actuellement à la découverte des unes en anglais avec toi, Lasha Kinsili.
Merci beaucoup, Etape Kanten. This morning we start with the Horizon newspaper, the Horizon, which revisit the outing of the Minister of State Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic of Cameroon, Ferdinand Gongo. Seemingly, according to the paper, President Paul Biya is disappointed with the inaccurate pictures presented to him by elites of the northwest region of Cameroon, reason why he decided to send his right-hand man, Ferdinand Gongo, to the northwest region of Cameroon to go look for the what the paper termed universal truth at the time when the Secretary General is credible with successfully organizing or piloting the organization of Shan 2021 and AFCON 2022 Infrastructure Committee in Cameroon. You can get details of that story on page 8 of this edition of the Horizon newspaper. And the Guardian Post, on its part, also took interest in the fresh calls or fresh pressures which mount on the government of Cameroon to resolve the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. The fresh pressure was reviewed recently as the Vatican's Secretary of State was visiting Cameroon. The Vatican Secretary of State revealed that the Pope is very much interested in seeing that a lasting solution is found to the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. He equally cautioned President Paul Biya to make peace with the Anglophone community in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. And also in the Guardian Post newspaper, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, is in the Bolova South region of Cameroon. He yesterday handed over Biya's relief aid to Anglophone IDPs or crisis IDPs in Bolova chief town of the south region of Cameroon, the region of origin of President Paul Biya. It should be recalled, Minister Paul Atanganji handed the relief to over 4,200 internally displaced persons of the Anglophone crisis who are residing in Bolova as we speak. And Lions 1972 AFCON captain dies in misery on the streets, as we are told by the Guardian Post newspaper. The captain of the 1972 AFCON squad or team has finally died in Douala. He died on the street in misery, as we are told by the paper. And Cameroon Insider this morning took interest in the cooperation ties between Cameroon and Sri Lanka. The paper says Paul Biya receives a special envoy at the State House yesterday, and the paper says the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to Cameroon, or the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, met with President Paul Biya yesterday afternoon. Discussions between the two personalities focused on how the Asian nation can boost Cameroon's energy production and agricultural development capacities in the country. You can get details of that meeting between President Paul Biya and the Sri Lanka's High Commissioner to Cameroon only in this edition of Cameroon Insider. And the paper also talked of Mali and Morocco reaching the final phase of the AFCON, the Shan 2021 in Cameroon. Those are the two teams that finally picked the tickets to the finals yesterday, as they played the semi-finals matches in the various stadia that were programmed. And also in Cameroon Insider, Pope's emissary departs after a week-long visit to Cameroon. The Vatican Secretary of State, who was on a 6-day visit to Cameroon, finally left yesterday. that according to the paper, the Secretary of State, Pietro Cardinal Parolin, who had been in the country since Thursday last week, flew back to Rome yesterday morning after an activity-packed stay. He is coming back, or he's going back with a file full to present to his boss, and of course Pope Francis, who sent him to Cameroon. And top on the agenda, or some of the things that he's going back with to Rome, is of course the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, and a way how this crisis can be resolved according to the paper. Let's end this morning with the Watchdog Tribune, which took interest in what is making waves on the social media across in Cameroon. We are talking about the various outings of Minister Paul Atanganji, which the paper has condemned, and qualifying the minister as one of the charismatic and most talked about ministers in the country. He also say all the talks on Minister Paul Atanganji is jealousy, and people are just lambasting Minister Paul Atanganji for nothing. Meanwhile, he is a leader that has to be emulated by many young people in the country. That's how we saw it today on what the English newspapers have for their readers this morning. We're going back straight. We are going straight to the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, to meet with our guest, who is already on the line. Good morning, Evis, and welcome once again.
Hello.
Good morning, Evis. Welcome once again.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Lasha. Good morning to your co-panelist, Kenton, in the studio. Good morning to all viewers from my prime. As usual, it is a pleasure for me again to be part of your program today.
How was your night?
Well, my night was sound. It was a good
After
one.
the four goals defeat, Cameroon was defeated yesterday by 4-0.
Well, you know, the defeat of the Lions could not in any way perturb my sleep, because to some extent I would say even the state had prepared that defeat even before the tournament started. You know, football in Cameroon today is more than 10 years that the football tournament league in Cameroon today has been undergoing some serious turmoil, and so far they have not been able to find any solution to it. So when you send Lions to go for a competition without any league back at home through which they could get themselves prepared, it was but normal that they should be kicked out in the course of the competition, given that they were meeting other players from other parts of Africa who have their own leagues ongoing and they have been training and partaking in competitions. So I want to think the defeat of the Lions, to those who are honest, they will agree that it was but something that was eventually going to happen somewhere, somehow along the line, though rather unfortunate for the country.
So what about the environment where the Lions were playing? Don't you think it played the psychology of the Lions too, where they were playing, knowing that gunshots were probably being heard, or they had in the back of their mind that gunshot could be heard at any time, any moment?
That could simply be a minute part of it, Mr. Lasha, given they were secured, and of course it was the state minister Atanganji who announced that the war had been won. So I want to presume that the Lions traveled safely, freely in a land where there is no war, and they went to Limbe to play. But unfortunately, if we were to look at the land per se, I would simply say that to some extent, the Lions perhaps could never have won this match in that particular land, in that particular territory of the southern Cameroons, given the amount of blood that has flown and keeps flowing in that land, to which people like Atanganji have never for once paid allegiance or paid homage to the lost families, to the lost souls. Rather, they keep provoking people, and to some extent, we even saw the governor of the Southwest and the traditional rulers, I can even say, being provocative both to the people and to the gods of the land, claiming that the stadium had been dedicated to the Lions and that they were just coming to take home their victory. To me, all these things were provocative, and perhaps I would say the gods of the land to also play their own role in making sure that they go back home with a message to let them understand that there is trouble in that land, and that the trouble in that piece of land needs to be settled before anything perhaps positive can come out of it as far as football is concerned.
Okay, let's stay with football. We're talking about the 1972 AFCON captain who reportedly dies in misery, according to the Guardian Post newspaper. What do you make of this headline in the Guardian Post?
I may be tempted to think that perhaps he was never a part of the system that we have in this country. Maybe that is why he was forgotten, because we know many of our national heroes that have been forgotten are people who, in one way or the other, perhaps did not align with the norms of the system in place. Because when you stand by them, automatically you become a politician and you get all the benefits. It's rather unfortunate that he bowed out in such a miserable way, and it only paints again an image of what Cameroon reserves for her national heroes. You know, even in history, when you talk about the Umnyobes and all, it's just of recent, perhaps, that Cameroon to some extent is trying to recognize them after so much pressure from civil society organizations, after so much pressure from even those few Cameroon who still have that patriotic zeal in them, without which they have often been referred to as maquisards, as terrorists, and it remains at that level, at the level of the system that we have in place. So I think that he's passing away. We regret it so much, but it's just a reflection.
Don't you think he did not also plan for his life? He did not also plan for his life, or is he his retirement?
Well, Mr. Lasha, I would not want to think so, because when you mention, for instance, the era when this man played football in the 60s, in the 70s in this country was more of a patriotic something than a financial, than a business. Many of them were playing for virtually no pay, if I may put it that way. What they got at that time was very, very minute, very, very insignificant in terms of finances to want to think that they could comfortably plan their lives based on that. So I cannot think that it was a matter of that hero of ours fully managing his finances at the time and or whatnot. I don't think so. I think simply that he was neglected by the country and he has died, and perhaps we could learn a lesson, because it's never too late. We could learn a lesson and look at some of his colleagues who are still living, some other heroes that are still alive, and see how we can cater for our national heroes before they part to the world beyond.
Okay. Etape Kanten has a question for you.
Bonjour une fois de plus.
Bonjour.
Voilà, quittons du sport pour parler maintenant de l'économie. Que dire donc de cette coopération entre le Cameroun et Sri Lanka? Que pouvez-vous dire par rapport à ce qui peut arriver après dans le domaine de l'économie? Qu'est-ce qu'il faut changer selon vous?
Qu'est-ce qui
peut changer dans le domaine de l'économie?
The focus is on...
well, I think talking about bilateral cooperations between Cameroon and other countries, I will think that each time countries are signing such partnerships, they always have their interest to safeguard. And Sri Lanka, at the end of the day, may stand to benefit from their partnership and maybe develop their own country. But we know that in the history of Cameroon, we have signed 1,001 partnerships in this country. But what I keep describing is the fact that at the end of the day, the common man does not in any way directly benefit from such partnerships, because whenever they are signed, at the end of the day, they end up in somebody's drawer somewhere in his office, and they do not see the light of day. Or if it is something that has to do with physical cash, of course, we know the Cameroonian system. Some particular individuals, they swindle it and it dies a natural death.
Yes,
Cameroon has 1,001 international partners, but then Cameroonians are living a miserable life, not because the partnerships are not there, not because they do not sign such bilateral cooperations, but because we have a bad government that does not put in place a good system or policy to manage finances and resources that emerge from such cooperations to benefit the state as a whole.
Yes, Elvis, you know, we have a lot of issues when it comes to the energy sector, and Cameroon Insider, talking about the visit yesterday, is focusing on the energy and agricultural sector, and you know what, you know how powerful these Asian countries when it comes to agriculture. Most of the rice and whatever we import comes from the Asian countries.
Let me begin with agriculture and the rice you are just mentioning, Mr. Lasha. I do not really think that as of now we should still be at the point of discussing bilateral cooperations, maybe to import rice, or perhaps even to we can borrow knowledge from these countries on how.
Probably that's what Cameroon is thinking of doing, because they said in the agricultural sector,
that is why I say
maybe to develop our farms.
Now the government has
to develop our farms.
Now this government.
Yes. Go ahead,
Mr. Lasha. I'm saying that The government has given Cameroonians every reason to doubt them in whatever business corporations they sign. We may simply have to wait until we see maybe the rice sector begin to boom in Cameroon, and then we can clap for the government. But if it is just because they have signed something with Sri Lanka, I don't think for now we should go clapping. Because like I say, take the north. Those are areas where rice is produced in this country. But we know that every year, as of about 3-4 years back, Cameroon subvents importation of poor quality rice at over 150 billion. But I don't want to think that we need more than 50 billion in this country to subvent home production. So if they are going to Sri Lanka to borrow ideas as to what can be done, good and fine. Let us see how far they implement. But we know already in advance that even when they will borrow the ideas, we shall need money to finance. And even if Sri Lanka maybe has to give part of the money, people are going to embezzle it, or
so what is the problem? Is the problem President Biya or you people that the money will be given to manage? So who do you blame?
Mr. Lasha Kingsley, the problem begins with Mr. Biya and then continues down with the people he appoints. I always say we should stop this issue of always wanting to look for someone to carry the blame when Mr. Biya himself is right there. I have often said he is the person who appoints. And remember that when he appoints, when you are the head, you should accept not only the credits, but you should also accept the blames when they come. When you appoint people who do not work, and you maintain the same people, and you recycle the same people, then there is a problem. Cameroon has human resources. Cameroon has people out there who can do 10 times far better off than what we can imagine to boost the country. But for as long as you are not with the system, you cannot come into their circles. That's the problem. So the problem begins with Mr. Biya, the head, before it goes right down to those who are appointed, and they end up embezzling money. And I want to tell you that when you talk about appointments, people are delegated into offices already on a mission. We appoint you somewhere because we know that there is an eventual budget coming, which we will take and then bring back to us, and we share at the background. And at the end of the day,
Mr.
Man, like I say,
Mr. Elvis,
yes.
Oui, au regard des manquements que vous avez soulignés dans l'économie camerounaise, qu'est-ce qu'il faut donc faire pour la sauver, selon vous?
What we need in this country is a total change of the system in place. And that is why we of the Popular Action Party, for instance, we are insisting on a political transition. A political transition that must begin with the departure of Mr. Biya and his entire system.
Elvis, are you going Elvis?
And the system states.
Elvis, are you going to
Yes.
import the people who come into the new system, or the very Cameroonians you are complaining about?
We are complaining about Cameroonians who are into a particular system and not Cameroonians as a whole.
So is a problem the system? Is a problem the system or Cameroonians?
The problem is the system. It is a system made up of a clique of persons. And so if this government, if this regime and that system disappears, new Cameroonians with new blood and with new ideas will take over. That is why I started by saying that when we talk about human resources, Cameroon has the potential. We have people both at home and abroad that can do marvelous things for this country to advance. So the simple basic thing that Cameroonians need to do is to make sure that this government gives way. This regime, when I say government, I mean the regime, the system in place. Let it give way, because if Mr. Biya even departs as an individual, it doesn't cancel the fact that he has already trained his persons and kept them there, and the same system will continue. So it is a matter of a total change of the system that we have at hand.
Mr. Elvis,
come into the place, and then you will see the change.
Mr. Elvis,
30 seconds.
Est-ce que la responsabilité est seulement à imputer au régime? Est-ce que les citoyens n'ont pas une partie de responsabilité à assumer dans ce problème?
Dans un pays démocratique, les citoyens lambda devaient avoir une partie à jouer, leur part de rôle à jouer. Mais sauf que nous sommes dans une situation où le système en place ne permet même pas aux Camerounais lambda. Il y en a nombreux là dehors qui proposent des idées, qui en ont des idées, mais tant que vous n'êtes pas de leur système, vous n'êtes pas donné cette occasion de vous exprimer. Raison pour laquelle même la plupart des talents que nous avons chez nous préfèrent même aller hors du pays. Donc c'est un peu de ça qu'on parle. Si le système s'y change, on aura des Camerounais qui vont même rentrer dans le pays pour pouvoir œuvrer pour l'intérêt général du Cameroun. Mais sauf que le système en place, tant que vous n'êtes pas avec eux, tant que vous parlez un langage qui part à l'encontre de ce qu'eux veulent entendre, vous ne pouvez pas faire partie de ce système. Et surtout, donc c'est tout le pays qui en écho. Donc je pense que comme je venais de dire, M. Biya et son système doivent dégager. Et là, maintenant, on verra ce qu'il faut faire. Cameroonians all have their role to play, you see. But it depends if the system in place could give people the room to express themselves, to be able to push into the benefits of the state, their talents and potentials. But unfortunately, it's not the case.
Okay.
Let me come back to the PAP of my party. We propose ideas every day, but no one ever takes into consideration.
Thank
Just
you.
a simple fact that what we say,
Thank you very much.
What they want, they don't accept them.
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you for taking time off your busy schedule this day to talk to us.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, Quentin, we've come to the end of the program.
Mesdames et messieurs, c'est avec un cœur enflammé de joie que nous vous avons servi. On se donne rendez-vous demain peut-être, si Dieu le veut. Et surtout, restez en compagnie de Mamie Prime TV, la chaîne leader, l'étoile montante.
The program was produced by Christian Tebong, and for presentation we've been Tape Quentin and myself, Lasha Kingsley. Bye-bye. Tomorrow is another day.